Lewd, lascivious, salacious, outrageous. It's got chocolate, peanuts, nougat. It's delicious, scrumptious, outstanding. My vacation was restful, resplendent, magnificent. That's deplorable, unfathomable, improbable. I am shocked and chagrined, mortified and stupefied. It's outrageous, egregious, preposterous.
It's definitely preposterous.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Just a Couple of Guys with your host, Pat Crimmins, and yours truly, Ray Rogina. You know, Fox Valley Magazine provides us with a lot of different interviews, and because of the magazine, we have the opportunity on occasion to go to Hollywood and talk to actors, actresses, and people that you are familiar with through stage and screen. And today is a good example. We're going to talk to Phil Morris, a.k.a. Jackie Chiles from Seinfeld. And we're going to enjoy that. And Pat, I know you're a huge Seinfeld fan. And give us the sneak preview.
Well, I'm also a lawyer, Ray, and Jackie Chiles, I think, is everything you would want in a lawyer. He is loquacious, as we talk about him. He's vivacious. He's a BS artist, as it were. But he's a wonderful guy. He's got quite a resume. He's done it all, from voiceovers to acting in his father's old show. We're very excited to talk to him today. Phil Morris, I'm wondering if he's involved in that tobacco company in some way. But we'll ask him.
Philip Morris, exactly right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case, but I wonder if his father, and his father, of course, Greg Morris from Mission Impossible, I wonder if he named him after the tobacco company. I don't know.
I don't know.
Who's to say? I do know this, though, Pat, that he's popular in the Fox Valley because the Cougars had we're going to talk to him about this. The Cougars had a Seinfeld night, and the place was mobbed, the largest crowd of the season, to come out and see Phil Morris. So he certainly is popular here in the Valley.
We must have been busy that night.
We must have been. All right. Anyway, we're going to take a small break, and when we come back, you'll have a chance to listen to us dialogue with Mr. Phil Morris. You stay tuned. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina, and I want to introduce you to a great Fox Valley institution. Fox Valley Credit Union is a member-owned, nonprofit, cooperative financial institution dedicated to providing accessible and affordable financial services to the community with locations in Aurora and Oswego. Its services include savings, checking, debit cards, money market, IRAs, CDs, and more. It also offers mortgages, Visa credit cards, auto loans, and a variety of other financial services. For information on becoming a member, call Fox Valley Credit Union today at 630-859-2276 or visit them online at foxvalleycu.com. Well, we're back and very pleased to have with us today a star from Hollywood, and a star of the long-running Seinfeld series. His nickname or his name on the show was Jackie Chiles, but we know him as Phil Morris. Sir, it's really a pleasure having you today.
Thank you, guys. What an honor to be here. Let's talk it. Let's chop it up.
All right. Well, for starters, I think our audience may want to know a little bit about your background, specifically the fact that you were born in Iowa City, but you went to Hollywood and Beverly Hills really early, and then went to school there. How about talking about sports and going to school and then landing in the acting field?
Well, my dad is Greg Morris, or was Greg Morris, from the original Mission Impossible series, not the movies. My dad is not 𝐕𝐻𝐺𝐻𝐿. My dad is Greg Morris. And when I say that, because the show was a long time ago, 1966 to 73. Right. So when I mention that, they don't realize that was the source material that the movies are taken from. Absolutely. But so my dad, Greg Morris, my mother, Leona Morris, who's a beautiful, beautiful artist and musician in her own right. We were brought up in Beverly Hills. I was the middle child. I have two sisters who were phenomenal. And to be the child of an actor of the stature of my father at that time was not easy, because he became famous, world famous, when I was 6 years old. And from the moment I was 6, oh, little Greg, are you going to follow your little Greg, are you going to follow your father's footsteps? Like, first of all, it's Phil. You
That's
know, I
right.
had my identity straight right away. And then
Right.
then of course, I'm trying to get out of his identity, but I become an actor. So it was like I jumped right into the shadow of my father's life. But so far it's been wonderful. And when I was younger, I was much more of an athlete. I was an artist. I was a automotive designer. I went to Art Center for about a heartbeat to try to do automotive design. I was a captain of my high school track team. I've been a martial artist for my whole life since my dad started Mission Impossible in '66. So I'm in two Hall of Fames for martial arts, and eternally grateful for this practice because it keeps me relatively sane in this insane business that I'm in.
Uh, how about getting into acting? Was your dad an influence to say, well, I want to go into acting and follow my father? And who might have been some of those other influences that you had growing up?
Sure. Well, growing up with my dad was a privilege. We had everybody in our household from Bill Cosby to Sidney Poitier to Lou Gossett Jr. All of the great African American talent at that time somehow found their way through my father and my mother's house. So I was influenced, I think, unconsciously from the word go. And when it came time to choose, I had graduated high school at 17, Beverly Hills High School. I had a summer job with my father on a movie called ComTac, Combined Tactical Unit, 303rd Division. So my summer job was literally to go and be a PA on this movie. This movie starred Billy D. Williams, my father, Henry Fonda, Chad Everett, Merle Haggard, Buck Henry. I mean, phenomenal talents. And I'm 17 years old. I'm just out of high school. So I go on this movie. I really didn't have too many designs on being an artist. I really wanted to be an athlete, an automotive designer. But when I went on this movie, and guys, this is why we get into movies. I want to play an astronaut. I want to play a cowboy. I want to be you know what I mean? So this is a war picture. I'm playing war, getting paid, having the best time of my life. When we finished that summer, I told my dad I really wanted to pursue this. So he got an acting coach for me by the name of Guy Stockwell. And I haven't looked back. Guy was the perfect first acting coach for me. And my father was very supportive at first. And then, he was concerned because it's tough. The acting profession is tough, full stop. And in the late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s, when I started, being an African American actor was just as difficult. So he and my mother were not thrilled that I made that career choice. But I think at the end of the day, I've made them really proud.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about Hollywood back then when you got your start. Your dad obviously was working successful. Um, was it difficult for African Americans? Was there racism in the industry that would affect your ability to succeed? I mean, your father seemed to go beyond that. Sidney Poitier obviously went beyond that, but I'm sure there were difficulties, right?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think you're stating the obvious. My father and Sydney were two of the very few of them that crossed over, especially into mainstream television or movies. A lot of the people at the time were doing what they called black exploitation at the time, and that's where they kind of found their footing in a way. Many of the actors that you see today are the older actors. But yeah, and how it affected me wasn't necessarily blatant racism. It was you're too dark, you're too light, you're not street enough, you're not ghetto enough, you're too erudite, you're not this, you're not blah blah. Every actor goes through that, regardless of what your culture is, whatever your race is. It's always a pick 'em thing, right? It's always a type thing. But for African Americans, because there were at the time so few representations available, and my opinion is that history is made by those in power. Movies are made by those that it looks like. Right? So
Right.
if the producers and the executives are homogenous, if they're white, those are the stories that get told. The more of those executive bodies and those seats are filled by people of color, women, different cultures, then you'll see those stories, as we have seen in the years after my father and Sydney, come to the forefront. And so we're telling stories that people who are in power can choose to produce, and
You know,
that's the big difference. It's money.
Phil, I lived out in California in the 60s. I lived in San Ramon, kind of in the Bay. And regardless of being an African American, there were volatile times in the 60s in San Francisco, et cetera. So that also, I'm sure, affected your ability to get out there and succeed regardless of your race, don't you think?
I believe so. I mean, I'm a little younger than to be able to reflect on the 60s. But yeah, the country was going through a great upheaval. We were trying to find our footing. The war was very difficult. We had, before that, fought wars that were fairly black and white, right? And so then we have this gray area that hit the whole country, and the young students were so fractured as a result of all of it, and they just couldn't toe the party line, as it were. And it became as you guys lived through, an incredible revolution in this country, and I think we're still
Right.
going through it, quite frankly.
Right. So I wanted to take you from working with your father on that movie to your kind of foray into acting. You got an acting coach. What was your first job after that?
The Young and the Restless was my
Ah,
first job. I had a 3-year contract. I did 2 years on the Young and the Restless. It was phenomenal. Great training for a young actor. They started me really, really small. I had maybe 1 or 2 pages in my scenes, and then when I left, I was up to 30 pages an episode. Myself, my own storyline, 30 pages of memorized dialogue. So as an actor, the training is phenomenal. And I was a model. I modeled quite a bit. Did a lot of GQ shoots, a lot of local Los Angeles fashion shoots and fashion shows. Um, the Young and the Restless that was really where I started, I think, and where the audience was aware of me. I had done some guest spots before that, but nothing of real substance. And when I did The Young and the Restless and falling into that whole daytime sphere, I learned so much about the craft. There were so many older actors, or Jerry Douglas, um, so many people that helped me. My buddy Colin Burnson's mom, Jeannie Cooper, was a wonderful muse and guide for me. Eric Braden, Hans Guntergast, Victor Newman. He was one of my real good buddies on the show. So, as a young actor, it was one of the best ways to start, and I think I really am grateful for that.
right.
Did you also do some voice acting during that time in the 80s, Phil?
I didn't do as much as I do now. I had a couple of things as a kid that I'd gotten into because my dad, was like, you guys are pretty cute and talented. Let's get you out in front of a microphone and a camera." So yeah, my sister Ione and I both did a bunch of voiceovers as kids, but it didn't really kind of kick in or click in with me until much later when I was, mm, I think in my 30s. I really started to do some really interesting voiceover work. One of them was the Lost City of Atlantis for Disney. It was a major feature film. It was an incredible honor to play the first African American representation in a Disney movie. So my father and I have been breaking down barriers and doors and hurdling all kinds of challenges our whole career, and I'm honored to carry the torch, and I'm honored to have the torch passed to me by my father and Sydney and so many others. I mean, this is what we were supposed to do.
Well, when we move into the 90s, of course, we know that you move into that infamous role of the iconic Jackie Chiles in Seinfeld. And we're going to take a small commercial break. And we come back, let's examine Seinfeld, Phil Morris, Jackie Chiles, and that whole crew. But first, a word from one of our fine sponsors. You stay tuned. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. Experience the 𝐿GN Symphony Orchestra, January 25th and 26th in the 𝐒𝐻𝐭 Cultural Center. Music director Chad Goodman leads the 𝐿GN Symphony Orchestra in Tchaikovsky's Pathetique Symphony and Saint-Saëns' First Cello Concerto with the 𝐿GN Symphony Orchestra's own Matthew Agnew as soloist. Tickets start at just $20. Order online anytime at 𝐿GNSymphony.org. Well, we're back with Phil Morris. And Phil, let's just get right to Seinfeld. And I'd like to have you just start by describing Jackie Chiles, the character Jackie Chiles, as you viewed Jackie during all that time that you were on Seinfeld, and how his importance to the whole show.
Thank you. I love talking about Jackie. He's one of my favorite characters I've ever played in my career, and I've had a long one. I'm going to move out of the way. Whack! Right there is a picture from the finale. That's from the courtroom scene. And it was so amazing. If you were to look at all of the people in the gallery, each one of those people, almost all of them had their own series after that show. That's how loaded and heavyweight that cast was, even the guest cast. So Jackie was a force of nature. And Jackie was based off of the attorney Johnny Cochran. Johnny Cochran was a big celebrity attorney here in Los Angeles. He adjudicated, he represented Michael Jackson and Todd Bridges, and of course O.J. Simpson. And the O.J. Simpson trial was what precipitated the Seinfeld crew to create Jackie Chiles. And Jackie Chiles is a construct of Larry David. So that comes out of the Larry David brain box. I got this audition and I just started to laugh because I had been going to the same barbershop as Johnny Cochran since I was 8 years old in Los Angeles. So I knew Johnny Cochran before anybody knew Johnny Cochran was Johnny Cochran. But Johnny Cochran was Johnny Cochran. I knew Johnny Cochran. And so going to a black barbershop or a black beauty salon, they are in our community the absolute eye of the hurricane. The center of the universe passes through every black barbershop or black beauty salon in the hood. You hear everything from political conversations, athletic, about sports, entertainment, everything. So to have my father, Greg Morris, who was one of the world's greatest talkers, and Johnny Cochran, who obviously was one of the world's greatest talkers, in the same barbershop at the same time, I picked up a bunch of unconscious notes. I just did. To hear him pontificate about anything from the Oakland Raiders moving to Los Angeles back to Oakland. You know what I'm saying? So anything was fodder for them, and everything was fodder for them. So when I went into audition, I just heard him in my head. I mean, not only have we been inundated with this cat for a year in the trial, but I knew this man personally. So when I went in, I felt like I had a leg up. And I took Johnny Cochran as the core because that's exactly what they wanted. I threw in a little street corner preacher, threw in a little bit of pimp, a little bit of hustler. And that's what created Jackie Chiles. I mean, he's a bit of Greg Morris, a bit of Johnny Cochran, a bit of my Uncle Bill, and a bunch of people that I know. And I think that the best characterizations that you can come up with are the ones that you know, that are in you, that are part of you. So it wasn't separate from me. It was somebody who existed and dwelled within me. Jackie was special, I think, for the Seinfeld crew and I was surprised how many times they actually used him, because it gave you a chance to see and objectify how ridiculous that crew actually was. And we saw that through Jackie's eyes. Jackie was a world-class attorney who could not win with them. He just couldn't. And I realized that if he did win, it wasn't funny. If he and Kramer actually won an adjudication or won an award, I'm no longer funny. It's the mashup of this attorney who's so buttoned down with this crazy lightning in a bottle client that made it work. And I had worked with Michael Richards on another show called Marblehead Manor prior to Seinfeld. So I knew his process. I was not daunted in any shape or fashion by going in to work with him. And the last thing I'll say about Jackie before you guys can ask me the questions that you want is that Jackie was always the star of his universe. I play every character that I play that they're the star of their universe. In our world, you two guys, in your life, you are the star of your life. It doesn't matter whether you work for someone, Paul is the producer and has things he's got to say to you. When you wake up in the morning, you're the star. You're the number one on the call sheet. You're the one who runs this ship. That's how I took Jackie. Didn't matter he was on Seinfeld. He thought Seinfeld was a low-rate comedian. He thought Kramer was a chance at a money grab. The only person he probably really appreciated was Julia Louis-Dreyfus, was Elaine, because she was a pretty woman. But Jackie was the star of the show whenever he showed up, and they absolutely loved him. Jerry, I know for a fact, thought that he was the funniest guest star they had. So I was honored to play him always.
Well, what was it like working with them on the set? Did they treat you with respect, or were you just kind of a special guest, that kind of thing?
Jackie was the man when I showed up. And when I first got the job, I wasn't sure about him. He was a pretty extreme character. And so I was rehearsing him a little bit, just trying to figure out where does he go and what does he say and how does he say it and all that. And Jerry's watching me in the very first rehearsal that I had, after the table read. And Jerry says, and he's not directing, it was Andy Ackerman. And Jerry comes over to me and he goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I got 5 days. I got to figure this guy out. I'm going to try different things." And he goes, "Oh, no. I want you to do exactly what you did when you were in my office and you got this job. Can you do that?" "Can I do that?" "Every day, twice on Sundays." So that's the guy you saw, was the guy I literally took into the room. But Jerry worked with me. They loved it if you were funny. They loved it when you nailed it. They loved it if you were funnier than them. They
Right.
wanted you to be funnier than them. If you did not bring your A game, they couldn't use you. And they
At
weren't
the end
very
of
good
the
about playing poker. They would let you know.
at the end of the day, I think both Jerry and Larry, if you would agree, they're scientists. They're the comedy is what dominates. It's not their ego necessarily. It's let's make people laugh, right? That's what it
Yeah,
was all about.
totally. Totally. And if you were a part of that program, let's go. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And they were really, like you said, they're scientists. They are comedic geniuses. Larry would say certain things like, Phil, don't pick the cup up and say the line. Say the line, then pick the cup up. And then you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because if I pick it up on my line, I'm killing the line. So say the line, zada da boom, pick the cup up and drink it. Killer. But it was those nuances that they had that if you were in tune and you were in touch, you got it.
Did the fact that you knew Johnny Cochran before you played a Johnny Cochran-like character help you or hinder you as it relates to your relationship with Johnny Cochran? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it didn't help my relationship. It didn't help my relationship with Johnny. It did at first. I remember going to the barbershop and then when you're getting your shave, right? The chair's all the way laid back and you got the warm towel on your face, so you can't really see who that is. And so I walk in the barbershop this day and then he's laid back and cat's in the thing with the towel on his face. And then the towel comes off, boom, the chair comes up, it's Johnny. Johnny looks at me and he goes, "You funny, man. You funny. You got a lot of talent. Cool." Then I do another couple of episodes. I do the final episode. I get a contract to do a bunch of Ford commercials with the Coen brothers, and I get a contract to do the Diet Dr. Pepper's campaign, and I got a contract to do Lipton iced tea, or Brisk, whatever it was. After the iced tea commercial, I get a letter from the law offices of Johnny Cochran.
Johnny.
Cease and desist. Stop your interpretation of Johnny's character. Well, he had already signed it away. He'd already signed his likeness away to Seinfeld.
Oh,
So
he now explain that. He signed a likeness
yeah,
NDA
a
or something?
release. Yeah. So they had that release. So it was beyond him. It was a fait accompli. Jackie lived and was getting a little bit more shine than Johnny, and I think Johnny didn't like that.
I see. I see. Ray?
Mhm.
I was just going to ask whether or not, and all this comedic action that's going on, and comedians are known for this. Was there any improv going on during all this? Not at all.
Not on
Not at all.
Seinfeld. On
Okay.
Curb, possibly. I never did Curb Your Enthusiasm. Every word I said on Seinfeld was letter perfect, was word perfect. We would, in fact, they would have changes, right? I mean, it's a sitcom, so it's kind of a living, moving thing. Morrison has its own rhythms. And so the rhythms sometimes change, even on show night. And we did it live in front of a live audience back in the day. And sometimes they do that now, but rarely. Always live with Seinfeld, always. So we'd be on the stage, Michael and I, and they would come to us and go, "Okay, look, Michael, we want you to say this. Phil, we want you to respond to this. And we say that." And we go, "Okay." And they say, "Well, say it. Do it right now." Audience is in the seats. We're on this floor, and we're auditioning lines that they've given us to make sure it works, right? So we never improved anything other than one moment with Michael. I did one thing with him. We're coming in, and it's the coffee episode, and we come in to see their executive body, right? And we get caught in the doorway, and we get spit out of the doorway. Well, Michael had that idea before that wasn't scripted. He goes, let's get stuck in the doorway. I'm like, "Mike, that's so cheesy, man. I don't want to. He goes, just do it, trust me." So I do it. We get caught in the doorway. We get spit out of the doorway, and Michael and I have these reactions. I look at him, and he's taller than I am. Yeah, I'm looking at him, and he looks at me in the Jackie and Kramer look, and he's like, "Oh, I can't, you." And it was so beautiful. It created a natural response from the two of us that we wouldn't have gotten just walking through the door.
I would imagine that part of your career prior to Seinfeld helped you with your character Jackie Childs, the modeling, the clothes that you wore. You were dressed to the tens, always. People are like, "Why can't you be more like Jackie Childs?" When they would talk to me, I'm like, "Hey, this is what I am." Not everybody could dress like you. Not
No,
everybody could pull it off. You were amazing.
thank you, brother.
Let's go to the finale if we could. The
Mhm.
picture behind you that we talked about. You would agree that the finale was not necessarily accepted as successful by some of the Seinfeld regulars. The critics didn't necessarily like the show. I don't think Jerry and Larry cared whether anybody liked it. I know that subsequently on Curb, they did a different final. Um, but what were your thoughts about it as you were doing it?
I thought it was perfect. I thought they got exactly what they deserved. If you watched that show for a half a season and it was on for 10, they were reprehensible human beings. They were not social, they were socially awkward. And except for within themselves in their own group, they were not accepted outside of that.
Right.
Outside of the girlfriends that Jerry had, nobody really liked him. You know what I mean? So they kind of got their comeuppance, and I thought it was a brilliant episode. I really liked that they brought all the people that were affected by them to stand trial with them. You know what I mean?
Right.
To bear witness that they were going down. And I just thought it was brilliant. And of course, I thought it was brilliant because there was so much Jackie. So the more Jackie, the better for me. And I
That's
think
right.
as the show has gone on, people have appreciated it because they've really watched the episodes again and again and again and again and again, and they see how really horrible these people these people were.
Right.
Phil, speaking of Seinfeld and its legions of fans, and I want to bring it back to our area here in the Fox Valley in the Midwest. A couple of summers ago, you came to a Kane County Cougars baseball game on Seinfeld night. And
Yeah.
the fact is, that summer, the Cougars drew their largest crowd of the season, over 10,000 people, to come and see you and that whole event. How about a little reflection upon you coming to a minor league baseball park as part of a Seinfeld night? What did you think of it?
It's so good. First of all, minor league baseball has the most rabid, loyal, faithful fans in all of baseball, maybe all of sports, because there's such an ownership of the local team with the local fans. You know what I mean? They really feel like they're a part of it, and how they go, so goes the team, and how the team goes, so they go. So that's the number one thing. The energy is ridiculous. The Cougars are a phenomenal organization, and the PR people and their advertising people are second to none. They're as good as any major league park and organization I've been around. Um,
And we believe so because they're one of our sponsors as well.
so good, so good.
Shout out. Shout out.
There you go. Keep supporting the show, people.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
it's just it's to throw a first pitch is nerve-wracking. All right. I don't care whether you do it with the Cougars or you do it with the Yankees. It's the same. You don't get a chance to warm up. The ball is always brand new. And if you're any kind of athlete like me, you care. Whether you stand at the mound, I stand at the mound every time, and I tell them I'm doing a special pitch, and they're like, "What? Okay, I'm gonna do I'm gonna do a Louis Tiant, a Fernando Valenzuela with a Juan Marshall high kick, and I'm coming to the glove." And the guy goes, "Really?" I'm like, "Really?" So I do it all, and I throw it with some action, and the guy catches it, boom, and he goes, "That was good, man. You did good." But you're sweating because you could easily bounce that thing to the plate. You could easily bounce it because you're so nervous, and it doesn't matter what kind of athlete you are. But the Cougars were so phenomenal with me, and I think one of my favorite writers, baseball writers of life, Jeff Passan, was there
Yes. Yes.
to interview your pitcher at the time. I think he had leukemia or he had a horrible disease that he'd come back from. And then he went on to the majors. He's now in the majors, I believe. But to meet Jeff there was special. The lines for me to sign all the gear that they had were around the stadium. And I can't thank the fans enough for the support they showed, the love they showed Jackie. You know, Seinfeld has a unique hold on the public. I think the public sees themselves in the show. They see themselves in the various characters that come in and out of the show. They see themselves in Larry and Jerry and Jerry and Elaine and the characters, or they see themselves in a part of it. They relate to it heavily, and it makes us special in their eyes, and I'm really grateful for that.
And not to mention all the lawyers that look up to you, Phil. as the great Jackie Chiles. Before we let the character go, you've talked a little bit about some commercial work, the Coen brothers after the fact, that kind of thing. Are we going to see Jackie Chiles again in a Super Bowl commercial, or maybe your own spin-off sitcom or something? What's next for Jackie Chiles, if anything?
Jackie is only going to be a pitchman. He cannot. Warner Brothers does not want to do a spin-off of the Seinfeld series. They feel the Seinfeld show was the perfect sitcom, and that to do a spin-off of that show is kind of sacrilege, is what they feel. I don't completely agree with them, but I honor that. They are so wonderful and supportive of me doing any number of sponsorship opportunities, as long as it falls in line with the Seinfeld ethos, and has that voice in mind. So I've done a few things that have been just fabulous, and I continue to do things, and people come to us all the time for sponsorship deals. So Jackie's an incredible pitchman, and I hope to continue to see him as that.
All right. Well, we're going to take another break at this point in time. We'll come back and talk with the great Phil Morris after these words.
Okay.
Billy, what are these chains for?
Has she been naughty this year?
And maybe you've been a bad boy yourself.
Well, this is Billy and Lauren here from the Diamond Air with affordable solutions to correct misbehavior of your loved one, or better yet, reward it.
You can reward that naughty behavior this year with a pair of beautiful solitaire earrings, or already have some? We'll enhance those studs by surrounding them with a halo of brilliant diamonds that we call earring jackets. And for that really naughty behavior, choose from a vast selection of colorless, ideal cut loose diamonds.
Because we buy our diamonds directly from the cutter, skipping the middle guy, you can give her designer quality at half the price.
So call 630-355-RING or come visit us at the Diamond Air, and we will help you keep that special someone naughty all year long.
With the Diamond Air, you will get a larger, better quality diamond for less, because remember, gentlemen, size does matter.
All right, we're back with the great Phil Morris. Phil, we wanted to talk a little bit about your personal life without getting into too much detail, but you have a wife, I believe, since 1983, which is contrary to most Hollywood marriages. What's your success? Tell us.
Day at a time, right? Day at a time. You can't be married 40 years in a day. It takes every day to get there. And when you run into problems, which of course we have had, you don't run away from them. You don't run away from them. You deal with it. And you hope that the person that you're with is amenable to the changes that you need to make. And so far we have been. She is a force of nature. She has her own business, her own world, her own life. So she doesn't require mine. And that's really cool. We have two amazing children who are literally two of our best friends, even though we are their parents and we deal with them as parents. They are substantial in their own right, have their own businesses, their own careers. And I'm blessed, man. I saw it. I mean, I told you, my dad and my mom, they were married for a long time. They ended up getting divorced later after we had all been gone and I had kids and my other sister had kids. So, but what we grew up in was a whole household, was a committed and a connected household. So I think from being an actor to being a father to being a husband, I took these lessons from my people very seriously. And so I work at it hard. And I'm not perfect, neither is she. And we fall down, but we get up. And I think that's the best medicine for any of us in any relationship we're in. You don't come
Well,
around.
I see a book coming on that, Phil. I take it do you live out in the Los Angeles area?
I do. I live at the beach, Manhattan Beach, California, the mecca of beach volleyball. Both my kids played beach volleyball, as I did. And next stop, Japan. I mean, literally, you look out from my balcony, it's beach and water.
I take it you haven't been affected by the fires necessarily.
I was just going to talk
directly?
about that. No, we have not directly. No, I have not.
Right.
And we're well south of it. I have many friends that have lost everything, not just in the business, but like I said, I went to Beverly Hills High School. I went to Beverly Hills elementary schools, and that was our playground. The Palisades, Malibu, Santa Monica, those are the places that we frequented frequently.
Right.
And so many people I know have lost so much. It was the spiritual toll and the mental toll is going to be far greater than anybody can imagine.
Right.
Phil, you alluded earlier to you being a practitioner in the martial arts. More specifically, I think my research is correct, the Wing Chun martial arts. And I'd like to hear, I've never heard of that specific type. Maybe our audience would be interested in what it's like and how long you've been practicing it, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure, sure, absolutely. It's great. I love talking about the martial arts because like I said, it holds my character together. I'm in a crazy business. I call it the circus. Join the circus, and I need grounding and I need truth because so much of this is not truthful. It's smoke and mirrors. So when my father started the Mission Impossible series in 1966, they started taking martial arts classes so that when they got into their stuff, they knew what they were doing. I was 7, so I went along. And I started training martial arts at that time. I was a really skinny little kid, and I was getting hurt and bruised and beat up and stuff. So after about a couple of years, 3 years, I stopped, and I didn't pick it up again until high school, and I started to study with a man named Bong Soo-han. Bong Soo-han was the technical coordinator for series of movies called Billy Jack.
Oh yeah,
Tom Laughlin, right?
yeah.
So he was the choreographer and a Korean Hapkido master that my father found. So I studied with him for a few years. And I was always a big Bruce Lee fan. I'm of that age where Bruce Lee he was everything. He was the greatest thing we'd ever seen. And I wanted to study the art that he was good at. And that was an art called Wing Chun Kung Fu. There was nobody practicing it here, nobody teaching it when I was trying to learn it. And so I just was always wanting to. But one rainy day, I'm driving down Venice Boulevard here in Los Angeles, and I see a sign that says Wing Chun Kung Fu. So I pull in. It's closed. I don't care. I'm ringing the doorbell. Bing, 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 bing. Little Asian guy comes down, and that happened to be a gentleman named 𝐒𝐞𝐢𝐧𝐿. 𝐒𝐞𝐢𝐧𝐿, long story short, from that moment till his death, which is like 3 years ago, I studied with him. So 30 some years, I studied Wing Chun Kung Fu. Wing Chun Kung Fu is a close range combat art developed by, yeah, but Bruce Lee was its most famous proponent. And uh, I just wanted to move like that. I wanted to be like that. I wanted to emulate that. What I learned was that you can do none of that. You can only be who you are. You can only practice who you are. You can't be Bruce Lee. I couldn't be my teacher. You can only be who you are and find yourself in it. And I think that's what the martial arts did for me. It helped reveal authenticity in myself. It helped reveal my own truth, my own needs and desires for my life, as well as practicing in physical. And I feel like I can defend myself. But beyond that, it was a real life lesson. And I stuck with it, and I stick with it to this day. I practiced yesterday.
Plus, if there's a remake of the Green Hornet, you're ready to go as Kato.
Give me the suit. Give me the hat.
You're over
Go.
qualified for all these roles. You talked a little bit about car design, and that was kind of where you were at the beginning. And you've got a Porsche, or it's your favorite car brand. You belong to car clubs, and you're involved with racing, or no?
Yeah, I have. I have had. I'm a skip barber. Skip barber is a great race school. I'm a skip barber graduate, and my home course is at Laguna Seca, which is up in Northern California. Um, I do own a Porsche now. I also own another fairly exotic car. I've been a Porsche owner for many, many years, and as the acting career has gone up, I have one. As it's gone down, I've sold them. But now I'm in a position where I don't have to do that any longer, and I'm no longer selling cars. I'm just going to acquire because I am a car fanatic. I'm very passionate about them. I don't belong. I belong to a couple of clubs that I never attend their events because I'm just not that guy. I'm
Yeah.
more of a casual car guy than I am a car fanatic in it, as it were. But I have fallen into a group called the Good Vibes Breakfast Club here in Los Angeles. And it's called that because that's all it's about, man, good vibes. And it really doesn't matter what kind of car you have. We meet up at a place called Newcomb's Ranch, was at the top of Angeles Crest Highway here in Los Angeles, which is closed right now because of the fires. But when I started going a few years ago, there were anywhere from 50 to 100 exotic cars that you would see every Friday morning, afternoon at Newcomb's, and anything from, a BMW 3 Series to a McLaren to a race car. And it really is not about the cars, it's about the people, because the people are the interesting part of the whole thing. And no matter what you got, whether you have a penny, you have a million, if you're a good person, you belong. If you're interested in cars, you belong. And that's why I really enjoy it.
Right.
Bill, life after Seinfeld has been really good to you. You've been a very successful actor, and I would like to simply know what have been some of your favorite roles, and has there ever been a role that you would like to have had that you did not get?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, there's a few. Um, Interestingly enough, one of the ones I wish I'd gotten that I didn't think I was right for, I was too young, was the Commander Cisco in Deep Space Nine that Avery Brooks got. I auditioned for that after I'd done my stint on the new Mission Impossible, which was the show my father made famous, and then we did a reboot of it with Peter Graves as the lead. Um, and I auditioned for that, and I was in the running pretty heavily. I just don't think I was old enough. I hadn't dropped a pair yet, as they say. I needed more gravitas to play that role. I needed more life experience to play that role. And Avery was the perfect choice for them. They wanted an African American actor who was classically trained, which is Avery. And I'm trained. I'm just not classically trained. Um, so that was huge. I really wanted to get that role. But the roles that I've done in the meantime, since Seinfeld, shows like Bosch Legacy that I did with Titus Welliver for Amazon Freevee, which was on a couple of seasons ago. Fantastic role. A very they would ask me, "Are you a good guy or a bad guy?" I'd go, "Yes." You couldn't pick him, and I really liked him. He was a guy who lived in a gray area. He ran a securities company. Was he a adversary of Bosch? Was he his ally? It was really up in the air. I really appreciated that. I also did a show called Doom Patrol for DC and for Warner Brothers, where I played Silas Stone, the great doctor, professor, um, who was the father of Cyborg, the superhero from Justice League, actually, a nouveau Justice League member. He's not an original. Um, I'll ask you a question about that later, if you know the original Justice League members. Anyway, I did that show for 4 seasons, and I just loved it. I played opposite a gentleman named Javan Wade, who played Cyborg. He was phenomenal. Um, I just work all the time. I forget. I work so much. I'm so grateful, but I forget jobs that I've done. I forget things that I have had an incredible experience with. One of the most amazing experiences I've had in my whole life was last year. I did a Capital One commercial directed by Spike Lee with
Oh,
Sam. I know, with Sam Jackson, Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley,
that was a very good one.
and me. And so I played Charles's attorney, right? Which is funny because you're like, you played Jackie. No, I played me. And that was the joke. The joke was we have Charles's attorney, but it's not the guy, it's the guy who plays Jackie Childs, but it's actually the guy.
Right.
And it was really well received. I loved spending the day with them, talking to Magic about our dads. We sat in a chair and just talked about our dads the whole time and how tough they were on us and how thankful we are now, how it was hurt our feelings back when we were kids, but so thankful now that they were that tough because look where we were. Look where we are. Look how we've processed all the tough lessons. So, and I'm doing some amazing work right now. I'm doing a show called Fire Country that the season finale will
Right.
be on. I don't know when this will air, this show that you guys are doing, that we're doing now, but on January 31st, their first episode of the new season comes out, and it'll be the second episode that I have done. And the character that I play is like unlike any other character I've ever played. He's a rancher. He's very much like Kevin Costner in Yellowstone, only he's black. So um, really happy to play on that with Jules Latimer and Billy Burke and so is wonderful. But I'm doing a show called The Upshaws for Netflix with Mike. Stark drama and then crazy comedy. Um, so I'm really grateful.
If I may, I wanted to take you back. You talked a little bit about the reboot of Mission Impossible. You worked with your father, didn't you, during that reboot? It was only a couple of years, I believe, but
It was only a couple of years, but those were full seasons. So we did 37 episodes. We had 19 the first year and the second season,
right.
and we shot them in Australia. We were in Australia for those years. My Peter, as we spoke before we got on, Graves was the lead, and so here I was, this young, and now I'm starring in the show that they made famous. It was surreal. Um, The show was a strike-precipitated show. We had the writer's strike of that time, 1988, going on. So Mission Impossible came out because they felt that it was the show that they could do that was modern enough without changing a word of dialogue, a word of direction, because they couldn't write. So I initially got the role of Barney Collier, my father's character. So he was Barney, and then for a bit, so was I. But then when the strike finished and stopped, then they, in their infinite wisdom, made me the son of Barney Collier, which I was. So it was amazing. It was surreal to do that show, having grown up with my father and with Peter Graves, Martin Landau, Barbara Bain, Peter Lupus, Lee Merriweather. It was an incredible Sam Elliott. I mean, so many people were on that show.
Right.
And then now I'm in it, starring in it. It was absolutely fantastic, wondrous, challenging, difficult, risk for a young actor to play that character. I could have gotten typecast. That could have been the last job I ever did, you know. But
Was it the only time you worked with your father?
I worked with him one other time on a legal show where that my sister was the lead on, actually. My sister, Iona Morris Jackson, was an actor, and she was playing an attorney on a law show. And so my dad came on as stunt casted as the client. He was my client. She was the prosecuting attorney, and we were all in the same show together. I think we have a picture of it somewhere.
Wow.
It was called Superior Court. And it was a Ralph Edwards, I believe, production. At any rate, yes, those two were the two things. But he wasn't my dad. He wasn't playing my dad in that. He was playing my client. In Mission, we're playing son and father. And in the show, he dies in my arms. In the second half of the show that he did, literally dies in my arms, which is not too far from what happened in actual life later. My father died in 1996, and he wasn't in good shape. And we did our best to assist him, but it wasn't going to work out. And so it was life imitates art, imitates life again.
Phil, has there been any actors or actresses that you have not worked with that you would like to work with down the line?
So many. Of course, Denzel Washington, of course, just because he's that guy. I'd love to work with Halle Berry. I almost worked with her on a movie years ago, and it would be wonderful to work with her in some capacity. I'd love to work with anybody who's got their shit together, man. I'm so sorry. I don't know how we can say that on this show.
That's all right.
No problem.
Who has their act together? I want to be challenged. I want to be stretched. I want to be pulled into greatness. And so I want to work with the best that there are, so that I'm no longer acting. I'm just being.
And I think, Ray, we have Denzel next week, don't we? We can talk to you for you, Phil.
We can talk about that, Pat.
Please. You guys have poll. Do it.
Oh, yes. Lots of
There's
pull.
an actor that I saw today, and I think you guys will appreciate this. Christopher Walken.
Oh, my gosh.
I would love to work with that guy.
Sure.
Just to be around his process and his energy and his nature's, his force of natureness. Yeah. Come on, man. That guy, he just does it for me. I just think he's amazing.
Ray, I think you want to talk comic books, don't you?
Well, I was going to say, we appreciate your time. I have one final question. We talked offline about this, but this comes from watching you on another podcast where you just went on, just talked on infinitum about your comic book collection. And as a guy who also has 50-ish and 60s comic books, I don't know how much they're worth, but you probably give me a clue as to whether or not I got something going downstairs in this in the vault.
Ray's estate planning.
Approximately how many do you have?
I have about 300 or 400. I know you have many more than that, but these are, Justice League of America, Superman, Superboy, Batman, all of that stuff is in there.
Well, that's going to be pretty pricey just by the dates of them. You know what I mean? They're relics at this point. At this point, and if they're in good shape, if you've got them in good condition, so much the better. Collectors are always about that, right? They want a perfect condition comic. I really think I want comics that have been read. You know what I mean? Give me somebody's collection who's like, this is Marlon Brando's comic book collection. Look at all the thumb marks and all the things. I'd be like, yeah, I'll pay thousands of dollars for that. Don't give me a perfect comic book that nobody opened. I can't use that. but I've got those too. I have about 20,000 issues myself.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I have the same comics I got in 1966 in a Cleveland drugstore with my grandmother. I've got them. I never sold one, not one. One time I sold a few books to go visit my girlfriend to buy a plane ticket. My wife and my sister bought those comic books back when I got money. So I have those books back. So I have not lost not one issue from 1966. I loved them. I loved them so much because they taught me to read on the highest level. I mean, they weren't for kids. Weren't written for kids. Kids appreciated them, but it was a high level. They taught me about storyboarding and cinematography. They taught me about heroism. They taught me about the golden rule. They taught me so much. They were morality plays, as every Star Trek episode is a morality play, right? Every comic book that Stan Lee wrote was a morality play. Every comic book that Carmine Infantino or any of the DC writers and publishers wrote, they were morality plays. And the heroes were the good guys, and they had obviously villains. So for a young man to be inundated with that kind of mythology, and I call it our modern mythology, was great. Taught me to draw. So I thank them. And I've worked in so many comic book properties that I've paid for that comic book collection 100 times over.
Yeah, you're in the DC universe, right? You do voiceovers for the cartoons, the animations, and you act in the movies as well, right?
I've done some TV versions of it, yeah. And I'm happy to do it whenever they call.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just Jackie Chiles.
No. Oh, that's another one. Smallville. I did Smallville, the show Smallville.
That's right. You
played the Martian Manhunter, and I loved that show. Loved working with Tom Welling. Loved working with everybody on that cast. That was shot in Vancouver, yes, as well. And a chance to play in the DC comic world. Let's go.
Yeah. Right.
Phil, we can't thank you enough for giving us the time you've given us today. I want to go back to what I said offline to start the ball rolling here in closing, and that is your father, at least for me in the 60s, provided me and my friends with great entertainment on Sunday nights in the dorms at college. And I can't thank him enough. And you, sir, have been stellar as Jackie Chiles and all the roles you've played since then. You're a model of what an actor should be all about. And you exude all that confidence today on our show. And we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to our friends here in the Fox Valley about that. And I hope we can, I hope you come back to see the Cougars sometime. And if so, we'll sit there and have a drink or something or other.
Let's go. Let's have a dog and a brew.
Thank you so much.
Love it. That's right.
You guys are being crazy good, and my honor, truly. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Phil Morris, a.k.a. Jackie Chiles. We're going to take a small break, and we'll be back with some closing comments after this word. You stay tuned. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. Are you looking for the place to be? Voted best live music and entertainment venue by the Daily Herald in 2023? That would be Old Republic in Elgin, an indoor-outdoor hub with classic American eats, beer, and cocktails, plus the best sports bar, burgers, wings, and ribs. Best value? Old Republic. Another good place to be. Well, we're back, and Pat, I looked at the clock, and 50 minutes went by quickly because, as you said in the opening, the man is loquacious. Yes, there's no question about it. Just a wonderful man that dialogues very well, and you can tell he's an actor. And but I felt again like I knew him for a while. He made me feel at home.
A lot like Donnie Wahlberg, I think. I got the sense that he's just a good, decent human being, raised right by his famous father and his wonderful mother, and just understands and respects his industry, his business, and his customer, which is the viewer. Just a wonderful guy, and he's the hardest working man in show business, as far as I can tell, with the voiceovers, the acting, and everything else. Anybody that can get a NDA from Johnny Cochran is my kind of guy.
Yeah, I hear this.
forgot.
Here's a story.
I forgot that Johnny Cochran was involved in the Raiders moving to Los Angeles. I forgot that.
That's right. He was,
Yeah.
but
So
not back to Oakland though. Was
I think it was Oakland to L.A.
right, right.
The NFL sued him, right? Yeah.
I'll never forget this, and it's testimony to his dad's role in Mission Impossible. It's March of 1968, and we're all gathered to watch Mission Impossible. And we turn the TV on, and who's on the television but LBJ? And we're griping and screaming and yelling, and yeah, come on, finish up here. Let's go. The mission's coming on. And all of a sudden, he looks into the camera, and you know the famous line, "I will not run for president of the United States." And of course, everybody, whoa. And we go from there. But the Mission Impossible was a huge part of my college life on Sunday night, to say the least, and afterwards, because it was on for a long period of time.
It was a good show. It was a good show. I don't recall ever seeing the reboot. Did you?
No, I did not. He talked about that, and I did not at all. But he obviously has great reverence for his father and for Peter Graves, who was the star of the show, Uncle Pete, and I'm glad to see that as well.
Well, anytime,
and of course, Pat, that Peter Graves is Matt Dillon's brother, right?
You did not
know
that he's had a story
from
career,
Gunsmoke.
But anytime you could grow up in a household where Sidney Poitier is there, and Bill Cosby and all the famous African American actors and comedians of the day, that must have been quite a upbringing. Yes,
indeed. So again, this is, or at least the last two. I mean, we've had several. Well, let's go back when we did Wayne Newton. He was very friendly and hospitable as well. I mean, I can't really complain. Paul Reiser. I can't complain about any of the bigger name stars. Of course, we had Belushi at the beginning. He was funny,
right?
Slurping his soup. But that was, we've had some success on that, and I really.
And then we'll see about Denzel Washington next week, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. All right, it's time to say goodbye. It's a late Friday, and it's time to move along to the weekend. And I just want to summarize by saying I'm happy about Notre Dame, even though they didn't win the big one. But I did tout that obviously you bet them to win. You didn't win any money, but they did. They had a nice season here, and I'm going to say go Buffalo on Sunday against Kansas City. And I know you're on that same page with me.
We are exactly on the same page. Everybody's pulling for Buffalo. 0 for 4 in the Super Bowls. It's tragic. Come on. The time is now.
All right. So if he's awake, I want to make sure I say thank you to our crack producer on a mission that I can't really define, but I know I'm not gonna get into specifics, but I know he's 10 time zones away. 10, which means it's early in the morning and he wants to get some sleep. But Paul Stuckel, thank you so much for taking time to put this together today for us. We really appreciate it.
No problem, guys.
Is it true those black helicopters? Is it true those black helicopters operate without sound? You can't hear them moving through the night.
No. All of ours work on sound because we're trying to scare the bejesus out of the people. So
I see.
It's a psychological thing.
Well, Pat and I will not have a welcoming committee at the airport when you return, but we will be happy to see you when you do return in the next week or so.
We'll send Kevin. He'll have a sign that says Paul.
That's right.
Will he also have his shirt, his blue shirt on? That will make Paul really feel at home.
That's right.
All right. And for my partner, Pat Crimmins, again, basking in the fact that he got to talk to one of his heroes, Jackie Chiles, Phil Morris, and it was good. It was This is Ray Rogina wishing you all a very pleasant weekend pleasant week whenever you pick up our podcast. And until then, it's Pat and Ray.
Ray and Pat.
Just a couple of guys. So long, everyone.
Thank you.